I think investors see this market as, something that is more of insulated from the ups and the downs and like the crazy swings of, all right, are we going into a recession? Perhaps, who knows? I mean, nobody can predict, not even your most, successful or, accomplished economist. But one thing that people can say is when they look at a place like Kentucky, for the most part, they see it as a lower risk type of a location. And also at the same time, a place that, perhaps is insulated from, the ups and the downs. And also at the same time, provides some yield, or provides some cash flow versus some other major, coastal metropolitan areas or other, class A, tier one markets may provide. So that's what a lot of investors are looking for when they come to Kentucky.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Tyler Chesser. Tyler is the president and founder of Chesser Companies. He's a commercial real estate broker, multifamily real estate investor, and peak performance coach for multifamily investors around the United States. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
Dwaine, it's great to be here with you, man. We're sitting here in 2020. I got 2020 vision, man. I'm excited. Let's do this.
Exactly. Yeah, we're just kind of talking. I was really excited for the year to start. Like who says they're ready to go to work? So the time is here, and it's time to kick things off. I'm really appreciative. I know we had scheduled this back during Thanksgiving, but it's actually good that we have you now. Kind of talk about what's going on, talk about Kentucky market and some other things. But before we kick things off, would you mind kind of talk about how you got started in real estate and a little bit about your company?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks again for having me on, Dwaine. I really appreciate it. And it's always good to speak with folks who are like-minded and be a part of a community who's like-minded. I mean, there's so many, we need support, right? We need other people who understand what we're going through. So it's really good to be a part of this show. And just to give you a little bit of background on myself. So when I went to college for marketing, I actually was fascinated with branding, and actually, my dream job was to be the brand manager of Nike, because I remember thinking back to when I was a kid growing up, I always saw Nike shorts or Nike shoes as like, my goodness, those things are like amazing, And I never really was conscious of that growing up. And as I grew older, I started to become fascinated with marketing. So long story short, I went to school, studied marketing, got out of college, and was doing international marketing for a Fortune 500 company. We were doing stuff all over the world, whether it was South America, Middle East, Eastern Europe, Asia. So it was really fun. It really kind of sparked my interest, and it really kind of kicked me into the professional world. However, the thing that happened was I learned that, wow, everything that I was taught in terms of go to school, get good grades, get a good job, really kind of flipped itself on its head when I learned that it wasn't really a fulfilling type of an environment. At least for me, it wasn't. Even though I was doing something that I found to be highly interesting when it came to the psychological aspects of business, why consumers make certain decisions based on branding or based on marketing, I learned that the corporate environment was much more of a political environment than really a results-oriented sort of an environment. And so with that said, it took me some time to really think through that and really to understand, why was I not satisfied? And, I was always driven. I was driven to succeed, and I was always driven for excellence. But I thought that I wanted to kind of climb that ladder and grow my career that way, because it was the only way that I really knew. That's what I learned in college. That's what my parents and other people that I had admired growing up, that's what they had done. I didn't come from an entrepreneurial sort of a background, but, long story short, I became very kind of, I guess, irritated with my situation. And also I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. And it's funny because when I came out of college, I thought it was so valuable. I did learn that, pretty quickly I wasn't nearly as valuable as I thought I was, and I had to grow that value. But I also learned that, I didn't have to necessarily wait, a few decades to really get where I wanted to go. And it's interesting because if I look back and I kind of put some dots together, like how I got into real estate, when I was in college, I also had an internship, or I considered an internship with a company called Northwestern Mutual, which many of your listeners are probably
Hmm.
familiar with. They have one of the best internships that really is out there. And I ultimately decided not to take the internship because it just wasn't a fit for me. But one thing I did there was I made a list of 150 people that I either knew or were, kind of within 1 degree of separation from me. And when I was kind of making these decisions and thinking out, all right, well, what's the next step in my career if, the whole thing that I've been kind of training for the past 10 years really gets flipped on its head. And I apologize for the long-winded first answer here, but I looked at my list and I said, you know what, I'm going to start taking these people to lunch and just start asking questions. I'm going to say, you
Hmm.
know what do I want to do? Because I didn't have real estate background in my family or other people that were close to me. And long story short, one of these folks was a commercial real estate broker, and I learned that there was some potential there for me. And he said, hey, what I recommend for you to do is come to my company. We're having a seminar next Wednesday night. I would say come and check it out and learn about it and see if it's a fit for you. And I came and learned that I had a personality that may fit to make 6 figures, and to me at the time it was like all the money in the world. And so I'm, of course, the shiny objects of 6 figures and potentially in commercial real estate was very intriguing. And so that's how I got in. I mean, that's my long-winded answer to how I got into this business.
Nice. So was that firm, was they specialize in a particular niche, and you said, I'm going to jump into multifamily, or is that something that you said, I like this, I'm going to start on that angle?
So interestingly enough, as I kind of inquired about real estate, I learned about commercial real estate, but I also learned about residential real estate, which I was much more, I understood much more. Like I didn't know really that properties could generate revenue, or they could generate cash flow, and they could be valued on that cash flow based on the risk profile in which investors perceive them to be. So that was really way beyond me at that time. And so I got into residential real estate and selling houses, because when I heard the words real estate, that's what it was to me. And I
Hmm.
started selling houses, and I learned very quickly that it wasn't something that I was going to be interested in a long term. However, it did solve some of my immediate financial issues. I was able to double my income very, very quickly. And with that said, I kind of stumbled into commercial real estate from there, because I was starting to be, I was starting to question this move because it wasn't fulfilling me in a lot of the things that I was doing. So what I did was then I was kind of just asking these questions, and all of a sudden something manifested into, I had a group that actually was referred to me that was looking to sell their portfolio that included multifamily, office, and retail properties. And they needed a young hustler. They needed somebody who would be willing to do the dirty work, show these properties, and really hustle and take tons of calls. And that's what I did. I mean, looking back at it, it was one of the greatest things that could have ever happened to me. But at the time, I was actually too dumb to realize, how great of an opportunity it was, and also too dumb to realize how awesome of a responsibility it was as well. I mean, it was challenging. I mean, a lot of these properties were deferred in maintenance. There was a lot of, financial issues with the properties. But I was ultimately able to sell, probably 70 to 80% of the portfolio over,
Mm.
18 months or so. And I built my business through that, my brokerage business. And then I learned and grew as an investor as well, not only investing in myself from a personal development standpoint, but also professionally, as a CCIM, as well as starting to invest in properties as well during that period. And so, I've grown as a broker, also grown as an investor, and I continue to do so today, but that's been my trajectory.
And then part of your your brokerage, are you dealing more on the buyers or seller side, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, so our brokerage has really evolved, and now we're entering in the 7th year of business. And our company really mainly now works with sellers. We do work with buyers and sellers on investment sales. We do specialize in multifamily. We also do retail and office, and also land. It's interesting though, because we have to be able to adapt. We have to be able to pivot based on what the market is giving us. And I believe so strongly in real estate. What I'm most excited about is being an investor myself and being, someone who, not only I put my money where my mouth is, I believe in the product. I believe in the potential of, what real estate can provide. And it's been great to be able to grow as an investor along with serving my clients as a broker.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot. I talked to a couple investors that are invested in the Kentucky market. Can you kind of talk about that market, kind of the characteristics and what's so attractive, to there? Because like I'm seeing a lot of people talking about that area. So I want to learn more. Of course, someone that's boots on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am located in Louisville, Kentucky, which is the largest city in Kentucky, right there on the Ohio River on the border of Indiana and Kentucky. And Louisville is, it's a city of about 1.3, 1.4 million MSA. So it's definitely got some size, it's got some diversity. And then if you look across the state of Kentucky, you've got a few different metropolitan areas in addition to Louisville, such as Lexington, Northern
Hmm.
Kentucky, which is really kind of your Cincinnati MSA, Cincinnati, Ohio MSA. You also have a Bowling Green market, Bowling Green, Kentucky, as well as Owensboro, Frankfort, Kentucky, which is the state capital there. And so I think if I look at it from a macro perspective, and, we work with folks all over the country as well as internationally, acquire and dispose of income producing real estate assets in Kentucky and primarily in Louisville. We also operate in Indiana as well, since we really kind of border on that state as well. But, most of the people that are looking in Kentucky are saying, you know what, and in particular Louisville, let me just be very specific there. People are saying, we see a diverse economy. You've got several different, major sort of Fortune 500 companies and, employers in that city. And we also see, a interesting sort of geographical makeup. One of the biggest job growth drivers in this region is really the fact of logistics, because, in Louisville and in Kentucky in general, you're within a day's drive of 70% of America. You're sitting right in the dead center kind of the eastern part of the United States. And so you have access to so many different, markets, whether it's, obviously Chicago, Atlanta,
Hmm.
Nashville, Memphis, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus. So you're really kind of there in the middle of many major metro areas. And, it's interesting, and I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but if you look at the population of all of these kind of surrounding areas, it's in excess of the population of California as one example. So, if you really kind of look at it, taking away kind of geographical lines, there's quite a bit of population and quite a bit of, consumers and also, employees and such. And so, you see a lot of manufacturing growth. You see a lot of, logistics growth. We have the UPS World Port is in Louisville. So you see a ton of, Amazon is, the fastest growing and perhaps the largest, most successful company in the world right now. And so a place like UPS Worldport is highly, highly successful. I mean, I don't remember the stat as well, but I mean, every 15 seconds, I believe there was an airliner taking off from the UPS airport during the holiday season, every
Wow.
15 seconds around the clock. So, that's just one example, but I think investors see this market as, something that is more of insulated from the ups and the downs and like the crazy swings of, all right, are we going into a recession? Perhaps, who knows? I mean, nobody can predict, not even your most, successful or, accomplished economist. But one thing that people can say is when they look at a place like Kentucky, for the most part, they see it as a lower risk type of a location. And also at the same time, a place that, perhaps is insulated from, the ups and the downs. And also at the same time, provides some yield or provides some cash flow versus some other major, coastal metropolitan areas or other, class A, tier one markets may provide. So that's what a lot of investors are looking for when they come to Kentucky.
Yeah, that's definitely key because people are looking, especially now with the uncertainties. People, of course, you can't tell where the market's going to be, and so they wanted something that's going to get like I said, somewhat insulating compared to all these hyper growth markets where it'll probably appreciate really quickly on a really good trajectory. But then, of course, if it's something goes bad, you have to kind of have a really watchful eye. So that's really key there. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing that.
No, I mean, you're not going to get the appreciation that you may get in, a New York, San Francisco, a Miami, LA, whatever it may be. I mean, you've got the potential for an extreme appreciation in those type of markets. You're probably not going to get that in most Kentucky markets. You will get it. You can still force appreciation through a business plan, through strategy, but it's not going to just, for the most part, happen just organically and on a crazy level. So those are some of the things that I think most investors have to be aware of. And I think a lot of people at this stage in the market cycle like that about Kentucky, and they see it as more of a sort of a lower risk insulated sort of a play.
And are you seeing, some newer inventory moving there, like some developers putting up some new stuff, or just kind of a lot of people are doing some value add play type of thing in your
Yeah,
marketplace?
we're still seeing a lot of development, and what's interesting, and I have to say truthfully, I was not around for 2009. I wasn't around for 2008 when the last correction occurred. But many of my mentors and people that I really appreciate, shared with me that they felt that or they feel that at least at this time we're not seeing an overbuild, but we are seeing a heavy and healthy amount of development. A lot of folks will say that they believe that multifamily is overbuilt even in our market. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of development and there continues to be. I mean, we're still seeing new properties come online now, but the absorption is very strong. I mean, you're seeing, you still kind of baselining or kind of high watermark at a 93% occupancy on a multifamily properties across the board, whether it's brand new luxury A-class, urban core kind of stuff or what have you. So even with a high amount of development, we've still seen healthy numbers, and most people who are in the know don't believe that it's been overbuilt. But there's definitely been a lot of value add play as well. So that's 100% something that we're still seeing. A lot of the value add is kind of maybe now going into the second phase of value add. They're saying,
Hmm.
hey, this business plan's already been kind of run its course, and now we need to come through and we're going to take it up to the next package. And so we're certainly seeing that. There's not nearly as many value add opportunities now as there were 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Absolutely. Can you kind of touch on let's talk about like relationships. I know, especially me, looking into new markets like Kentucky, I have to kind of find someone that's expert in that area, boots on the ground. Maybe some advice for people that's listening on this call, or the people that potentially find this, to find a broker in that market that that potentially can work together, relationship where you get that comfort level where you'll be able to send them some deals that could be some good opportunities.
Yeah, so I guess your question is you want to figure out how to build relationships with brokers in markets that you're interested in. Is that correct?
Yeah, or how guys should be approaching you to find you in order to, eventually find deals in your Kentucky market.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is try to stay top of mind with brokers because, like as an example, I can say for sure that, we update our CRM, very frequently and consistently with, most conversations that we're having. However, especially at this stage of the market cycle, it's extremely competitive. And for, when a broker comes up with a new opportunity, they're going to be running through, well, who have I talked to recently and who is really kind of showing that they're easy to work with, but also that they're eager and they're ready to close a deal. So I'd say that that's a really, I think, sound piece of advice right now for folks out there, is to remain top of mind, but don't overdo it. I mean, when you're reaching out to someone, have something to say. I mean, don't just reach out just to reach out. Try to add value as well. But I think those would be sort of my first two stops of advice.
Absolutely. And then as far as on the seller side, I mean, of course, you're bringing in buyers that, could be closing some deals, but then of course, having that inventory available to show them and, add value by selling those assets for these sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, now, so are we talking how does a broker add value for a seller?
Yeah. So what are things that you do that, kind of keep in touch with, the sellers that's out there to be able to sell those assets?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest things is just being present, being present and being active in the market. We have a lot of industry events in our marketplace, and, whether it's through CCIM, we call Louisville Apartment Association, which is a part of the National Apartment Association, ICSC, you've got ULI, you've got all these different organizations. And most of the players are pretty active in these organizations, whether it's, just through straight up networking, or what have you, or speaking at events and things like that. Doing what we're doing today. I mean, showing that you are an expert in the business, I think, goes a long way, because at the end of the day, what we are is we're advisors, and we help people make decisions. And you know what? I advise people the way I would advise myself as an investor. I want to make the most appropriate decision. And how am I going to maximize my investment? How am I going to maximize my strategy? And basically at the end of the day obtain my outcome, and I think there's so much information that is available today. One of the things that I try to do for my client is I help them synthesize everything that's available and then make the most appropriate decision, and think about what their goals are, because a lot of times we make decisions without remembering or reminding ourselves what exactly is our intention. And I think it's
Hmm.
very important to go back to your goals very frequently. But I try to be a team member. It's a long-term relationship. And I always say that no deal is better than a bad deal. I would much rather tell my client that, what, it's not time for you to sell right now, and them come back to me in a few years and say, hey, I really appreciated your advice. We believe that now is the time to sell, and we both would agree to that. And I just appreciate a long-term relationship much more than a transactional relationship.
Absolutely. And then as far as kind of the clients that you work with over the years and stuff, is there someone that you can think of course, not naming any names, but that situation or story you can tell us of a success story?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of success stories. I would say one in particular was a group that we worked with on the acquisition side that was, really looking to, and this is over the past probably 2 to 3 years, was really looking to compete in a very competitive market, which is, multifamily acquisitions on the syndication side. And we've been able to complete, 3 deals with them over the past 2 years, and those deals have kind of been in the 80 to 120 unit deals. And for the most part, we've been able to help them locate opportunities that never hit the market.
Hmm.
And is that something that we replicate on a daily basis? No, absolutely not, especially in this marketplace. It's extremely difficult to do, but I have to give credit to them because they acted quickly, and they were competitive, they were reasonable the entire time, and they made it happen. They did what they said they were going to do. And so I really have to give them kudos. But I would say that that's been one of the biggest success stories, just in terms of really, actually making it happen in a very, very competitive marketplace.
Awesome. You also are a fellow podcaster as well. Can you kind of tell us about your show and things that you talk about, and kind of what's the name and everything?
Yeah. So the podcast that I host is called Elevate, with myself, Tyler Chesser. And I love podcasting. It's honestly one of the most fun things that I do, in addition to coaching real estate investors and entrepreneurs. But Elevate is all about elevating to a life without limits. It's about personal development, personal growth, professional development, professional growth, and real estate investing. It's all about tactics, systems, mindset, psychology, personal growth tactics. I mean, how are you going to become that next version of yourself? It's about cultivating the appropriate identity to also manifest exactly what you want. And I believe that real estate, in addition to effective personal development and becoming that greater version of yourself, really allows you to elevate to a life without limits. And that's what the show is all about. So it's a lot of fun. And I would definitely invite your listeners to check it out and see if it's a fit for them. But the reason why I started that show is because when I got into real estate, I hired a coach, and my coach was always talking about books. And I started to I read like one or two of the books, and I'm like, wow, this really like changed my mind. It changed my mindset. It changed my life. And then I became more, and then I was able to succeed in this business, which then has given me so much and continues to give me so much. And so I believe if you can combine personal development, personal growth with effective real estate investment, you can provide, your practical needs, your cash flow, your wealth building, as well as your, all of these other things. You combine this, it really becomes a limitless life. And that's really what I want to live. That's what I want to help other people live. And so my goal is to reach millions and millions of people with that. And, it's been amazing. We've actually already reached the top 200 business podcasts in the world. We launched just about 4 or 5 months ago, and it's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure to include that into the show notes. Like I said, listen to it a couple times. Definitely excellent podcast, and definitely recommend for people to check that out. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. Can you also, including with your podcast, you're talking about a lot of personal development, things like that. What's like a typical work day for you, and do you have any special morning routines?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mornings are very sacred to me. I mean, it's, when I wake up in the morning, I'm kind of like a robot. I mean, the first thing I do is I roll out of bed and I go and chug a glass of water because my body's been conditioned for this, and I'm always super thirsty when I wake up. And I've got a dog, Bruno, so he's got to get some food there. He's a German Shepherd, so he's in the morning routine. Got to give a shout out to Bruno. But from there, really what I do is I meditate. I spend 10 minutes in silent thought, and really, I actually my meditation always develops into something different based on what I've learned recently. But it really started with a mindfulness meditation, just watching my breath, and being an observer of my thoughts and understanding how those work, and realizing that my thoughts are continuous like that, 24/7, 365. And so being an understander and an observer has really given me a lot of growth. From there, I look at my goals. I actually laminate my goals in the beginning of the year. So it's exciting to be in January right now because I just got that done about a month ago. And so I look at my laminated goals, I read them out consciously, and think about, what is it that I can do today to move closer to these goals? What action can I take today? It's like what Tony Robbins says, never leave the sight of a goal without taking one step or one action towards it. And so I'm always strategizing, I'm always thinking, but I'm reminding myself, what did I commit to? And so as I'm kind of in that early, brainwave state of my day, I'm really planting subconscious thoughts. And from there, I read every day for 30 minutes to an hour, whether it's a personal development book, business book, real estate book, you name it. I'm actually reading one right now about marriage. Believe it or not, I'm about to get married here in a few months, and I want to build a great relationship. So what better way than to read from a PhD of how to build a great relationship, a great marriage, and a long-lasting marriage? Because I'm going to step into this, I'm going to do it the best that I possibly can. So I read, I work out after that, I go to the gym, and I have some breakfast after that. Believe it or not, I mean, my morning, it starts at, just before 5 a.m. And by the time I'm done with everything, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock. And at that time, I'm getting my actual work day started. But I've worked on myself, and I know that if I do that, everything else that comes through the day can be extremely crazy. It can be overwhelming at times, but I know that I've moved myself forward from what I've done in that morning. But as far as what I do during the day, I mean, a lot of times, I get started with just, hey, what's the team doing? I've got a few employees, what's going on with their day? What do I need to communicate to them? What calls do I need to make today? In our business, it is about relationships. So who am I meeting with? Who am I having a discussion with today? And how am I, what's the why behind what I'm doing at all times? So I always try to ask that. And, for the most part, we have sort of long days. I mean, sometimes it ends at 6 o'clock. Sometimes it's at 7 o'clock. And at that time, I try to unwind and really kind of disconnect, because I don't want to be accessible 24/7. That's one of the things I do like about being an investor and a commercial real estate broker, is that, the expectation is not 24/7. And I know that I would burn out if I did. So that's what my typical day looks like. And on the weekends, I try to unwind a little bit as well, do some more reading, some more, exercise, and spend time with family and friends, and go outside and do something, something a little bit different.
Awesome. Yeah. So with all of that too, kind of gets into my next question of, gratitude. So what can you say that you're most grateful for?
It's a moving target from day to day, and this is something that my fiance Katie and I talk about every single morning. Is what are three things you're grateful for, and then we also talk about what are three things you're grateful for in the future, because we believe if we elevate our emotions about something that is coming to us in the future, that we have a better opportunity to actually manifest that. And so, if I were to say what I'm most grateful for, it's probably honestly my own development and just the influence that has on other people, because I believe that creating this new identity every single day, recreating myself, not only has a positive impact on my own future and how satisfied I am with my life, but also what others can truly create in their life. And I hope that I'm creating an example for other people that shows that anything is possible. Your life is limitless. All you have to do is go on the other side of fear. Every single thing that you want is on the other side of fear. So what I'm most grateful for is just that continual pursuit and that continued progress.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very deep. I like that a lot. So very well said. So we will include your podcast in our show notes, but can you tell us how we can get in touch with you? Maybe a link to your website or anything that you're willing to share with us.
Absolutely. So thanks again, Dwaine, for having me. And you can reach me on a few different places. I'll start with coachwithtyler.com. If you want to inquire about coaching, I do coach real estate entrepreneurs, and it's all about peak performance. It's all about mindset. It's all about building a strategy, a blueprint, stepping into exactly what those massive goals are and really kind of opening your mind towards what actually is possible and making that happen. So coachwithtyler.com, also tylerchesser.com. There's all the resources there. Elevate with Tyler Chesser is the podcast. It's on it's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Stitcher, SoundCloud, you name it, YouTube, everywhere. So you can find me there, or Instagram at the Tyler Chesser, same with Twitter. So I'm trying to be everywhere, but only one place at a time. I got to be focused, right?
Exactly. Tyler, it was excellent to speak with you. I'm glad we finally was able to get connected. Really appreciative. Again, this is a great way to kick off the New Year's. Blessed to you and your new fiance and your future life. Again, really appreciate it again, and look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.